You're listening to the Holistic Spaces podcast brought to you by Mindful Design Feng Shui School, episode 354, Creating a Cozy Space with Feng Shui. Welcome to episode 354 of the Holistic Spaces podcast, where we hope to inspire, educate, and empower you to create your own holistic spaces that nurture and resonate with you. Laura Morris and Angie Cho are the founders of Mindful Design Feng Shui School, and we're authors of Mindful Living, a guide to the everyday magic of Feng Shui. We teach Feng Shui online at mindfuldesignschool.com. You can sign up for our mailing list for special free content, workshops, and events available only for our newsletter subscribers. You can visit mindfuldesignschool.com/join or look in the show notes on your podcast app to join our mailing list. And we do have a lot of things coming up in the next few months. So definitely join our mailing list to get notified on that and just to have access. So over the winter, we've been doing a special free winter retreat for our newsletter subscribers, and it just comes straight into your inbox. So be sure that you're subscribed to our newsletter list for that. And it's a gift to our listeners. We really want to offer you some contemplative energy for the winter. And it's also a really special time of year in the feng shui community because it's this transition between the winter into Lunar New Year. And with that, Laura and I always offer a welcoming the new zodiac animal ceremony and teaching. And it's called our New Year's Reset Program. It starts with an on-demand videos and PDFs on how to prepare for the Lunar New Year. We're saying goodbye to the snake and welcoming in the energy of the horse. And then it culminates on or around Lunar New Year with a special ceremony that we gather live on Zoom. Everything is recorded, of course. But it's also, I think, special because Laura loves horses and it's the year of the horse. And it's going to be definitely a different energy. The horse energy is much different than that of the snake that we're in right now. So be sure to sign up for our newsletter to find out all about this. And our enrollment opens very soon for the New Year's Reset package. So you can get all the things moving in your home with ease and not rush to prepare for the Lunar New Year. And again, stay tuned for our free winter retreat or offering that we'll be providing for our newsletter subscribers. So this week, we wanted to talk about something very appropriate for this time of year, how to create a cozy space with feng shui. And this was actually inspired by some press queries that we received last year. We received a lot of press queries about how to create a cozy space using feng shui interior tips. So Laura had a lot of fun with this, and we thought we would put it together for a podcast episode. Hopefully you can use feng shui to create some cozy vibes in your home.
Yes, this time of year, we're all contemplating the months that we will be spending indoors. And creating a cozy space is one way to help you weather this long, depending on where you live, can be quite long and cold winter. First, we often get a question is, do you need to completely revamp your whole space in order to create a quote unquote cozy space? Can you create it with any kind of style? Because everyone has, this isn't a question necessarily about what style is the coziest. It's really talking about how to create the cozy energy into a space, regardless of interior style. And the beauty of feng shui principles is that when you're designing any space, you can apply it to any kind of decor. I would say, and we'll start this discussion off with the most important part of creating a cozy interior is to lean energetically. So leaning toward a very particular type of energy, which is a little bit quieter and it's darker, etc. And that would be yin, what we call yin qi or yin energy in feng shui. And this can be applied again from a design perspective, it's universal. So the term yin, it refers to qualities that you can apply to design, but this is obviously a feng shui term that speaks more to the idea of being soft, being receptive, plush, dark, quiet, as I say these, you can see how these apply to design materials, lighting, etc., and how you create the flow in the space.
If you want to create more yin energy, you can look at this softness in your space, how to be more receptive, curvy shapes, plush materials, darkness, quiet. And this can be expressed through here, like some specific examples. For instance, you can set up seating that is inviting. So that's more receptive. So, for instance, seating that's set up in a U shape instead of maybe with backs facing towards each other, but encouraging people to sit and face each other or sit in a U shape. Sitting side by side is less inviting. You could also set up seating that is facing or looking towards the door. So that's more inviting. Dimmable lighting can create a soothing atmosphere and an opportunity to still have illumination, but bring it to a low level if that's appropriate. And it gives you a lot of options. And dimmable lighting can be through lamps, it could be through ceiling fixtures, it could also be through candles. There's so many different options now, like portable lighting, and also having possibilities for darkness. So in your home, especially at this time of year, it's helpful for your circadian rhythms, also to balance your yin and yang at this time of year, to have dark corners, to not have everything lit up. It sends a signal to your brain that it's nighttime and it's more of a yin time, and it replicates nature. It's more natural, but also it's creating a yin and yang atmosphere. So having possibilities for darkness, having dark corners in your home, at nighttime is really helpful. And then soft plush materials like fuzzies or smooth, like anything that feels supportive for you. I know a lot of people have like their own ideas of what is ideal fabric for them and what's supportive. So thinking about what's cozy for you, but generally soft plush materials and natural fibers are very soothing. And then curvy lines and round shapes suggest a soft flow of chi because yin energy is connected to water elements. So you think about like the soft, flowing, undulating, formless lines of water, for instance. And I'm clarifying because sometimes when I say like flow curvy lines, for some reason, like I've had people think that they're zigzags. Zigzags are definitely not soft, they're pointy. So we're talking about soft, curvy lines that are found in nature, like the waves of water. And round shapes also are very soft. There's no hard edges, quiet spaces. So offering moments of quiet in your home, this can be encouraged with soft surfaces that absorb acoustics. So, like drapes absorb acoustics. So, if you've ever been in a restaurant with a lot of hard surfaces, the sound actually reverberates quite a bit and makes it louder. So if you think about like a recording studio, there's foam on the walls and acoustical materials that are actually soft fabric panels, perhaps. And there's a lot of other things to acoustical engineering for sound, but you can create quiet spaces with materials. You can also designate like maybe it's like quiet moments. Like my husband and I, we do like, let's do 30 minutes where we're hanging out together, but 30 minutes in silence, like not talking to each other, but you can be with someone. So cultivating these quiet spaces or quiet zones and using the interiors to support the absorption of sound rather than having it amplify it.
And specifically for some rooms, you can think about different areas of your home, ones that sort of lean more toward the cozy importance of being cozy. Again, as we move inward, setting up a really comfortable living room or a room where you can relax, you can sit, you can read, you can watch TV. I think we all know that when the weather is not great, we want to spend it curled up maybe with a book or watching a new, great TV show or hanging out with friends and playing games. And so you want to create a space that will help to like lower everything down in terms of the chi so you can just feel settled and calm and quiet. So one thing that I tend to avoid as well, so this is also speaking as when I design spaces, I tend to avoid in living rooms, and I know there's people that differ on this. I'm not a big fan of overhead lighting in a room that doesn't require, you're not performing surgery, right? In a living room, you really just think about what the function of that room is. So I tend to avoid overhead lighting and instead choose accent lighting, floor lamps, table lamps. If you do have a ceiling fixture, as Angie mentioned, putting it on a dimmer switch can create that option, keep it softer. And then specifically in the living room, from all the things that Angie had mentioned in terms of ways you can create yin energy. So in this case, choose a sofa that is perhaps a lower profile, is more grounding, doesn't have a lot of metal maybe on it. Sometimes you can find there's furnishings out there that have quite a bit of metal detailing on them. Want to avoid that and instead choose something that's soft and upholstered, something that you can really, again, feel embraced by, because again, this yin energy is receptive. So being able to create this space where you can just sink down and gather and curving or allowing the flow of chi to move smoothly. So you want to make sure that you're not blocking a lot of areas with large pieces of sofa, but it's enough that you can have a conversation with someone or maybe imagine yourself being able to play a board game at. So, thinking about what you like to do with friends and family during these cozy season, and then you can reconfigure, move your furniture around to support that.
So, another room that we can look at to create a cozy space with feng shui principles is a bedroom. So, similar to what Laura was talking about, you want to cozy up in the living room with a book. You also probably like to cozy up in your bed. So, one thing that we talk about often is a feng shui way to create more coziness with your bed is to have a solid, stable headboard, especially a cozy one. That creates a cozy feel because it anchors the bed visually and energetically to you. It gives you a strong mountain behind you. So it's very supportive. It's what we call in feng shui like a cozy armchair position, actually. So you're supported from behind and of course, you can get an upholstered headboard that's more cozy. The idea, though, is really about having a headboard that is supporting you, is protecting you, it's holding you. And you can make it, again, super cozy by having a super soft upholstered headboard that has padding. You can enhance even more with soft curved lines. You can also, not buy any new furniture, but just add pillows and throw blankets to make it more cozy, to provide more warmth and a lot of options. And I would also recommend natural fibers as much as possible because you're being surrounded by the chi, the life force energy of those fibers and that bedding around you. So selecting the highest quality that you can afford is always recommended because you're surrounded by this material for, hopefully at least 8 hours, a third of your life. So definitely do your best there.
Yeah, and a lot of times when we're in the bedroom is somewhere where it's also an intimate space. So making sure that your partner and you both have, equal stuff. You both have somewhere to put your book down and maybe you have a nice lighting available. I mean, it really does make a huge difference. I think table lights on side tables or around there is a big deal. Okay, we get the question sometimes, but what if you are minimalist? What if you like that sort of, and I guess it's really defining what minimalism means. So you can be a minimalist and still have non-modern furnishings. So I think I think sometimes there's a disconnect on what does it mean to be minimalist. So I would say that if the question is in general, if you're talking about a really modern and sleek style, like quite leaning toward that very bright white, stark, clean, sharp lines. Yes, it is less cozy. I mean, that is, I know I said earlier that any decor can be, cozy, and it can. So how do you take that if you have that style? It's got quite a lot of yang energy in it. So you want to again use feng shui principles to see if you can take a more modern or more stylized interior and make it cozier. Some principles we've already talked about is trying to furnish it with lower profile sofas, but that are softer textured. And I'll talk a bit about color in a second. We'll talk more about color. Natural fabrics. I mean, personally, if you are, and we'll talk about what a bright white leather is very young. Instead of choosing a slightly, warmer white or neutral with a natural fabric on it can bring in grounding and stabilizing energy. And I think one thing that is often overlooked in spaces, and I've seen some spaces where the flooring itself is also incredibly stark. I mean, even to the point where it's either white or black, and that is, again, very young. You have the option to bring in area rugs, and area rugs are the great fixer of all things, I truly believe. So bringing in an area rug that has the colors that we'll talk a little bit more about, not only to bring in a softer or warmer or cozier color, but also to physically to ground the space, especially if you are looking at your space and you're like, there is a lot of white in here and it is very stark and I want to go there, but I don't want to rip up my floors or whatever. It is a good way to really put, underneath the sofa big enough so that it goes all sort of really cradles and all around that sofa area or at the end or around your bed at the end of your bed. That will really do a lot to just bring everything down and ground it and make you feel cozier and more grounded.
Speaking again about cozy, what are some of the best cozy colors? Laura touched on this a little bit, where white, a stark white, might not be as cozy. Color is very personal. Like, so if you read our book, Mindful Living, Laura spearheaded the color chapter in our book because it's a big question that we get all the time from people. People want to know the best color. So there is no best color. It depends on you. And we don't look at feng shui as a checklist. We look at it as a flowing, living, responsive philosophy and teaching that you can explore. And we invite you to explore it instead of looking for the right answer. So there is no best cozy color, but we can give you something to work with. So some people find that light neutrals are especially comforting. And, I work in New York City. So, like when Laura's talking about the overhead lighting, in almost all of my clients, and it could also be the type of client I receive, all want to add, they drop their ceilings to add overhead lighting. But we're also living in apartment buildings with not that many windows. And so the number one thing is they want a lit space and they add the overhead lighting. But we, of course, always have dimmers. So there's an option to lower the light, but people want to have enough light. And that's actually like the number one thing that people look for in New York City apartments is what is the access to light, natural light. So similarly, I think a lot of my clients tend to lean towards light neutrals and less on dark earth tones. But that's a wonderful way to bring more warmth into a space, like very light, like light oak is so, natural oak, light oak, bleached oak, not stark white, but definitely like light oak, natural oak, or ash. Walnut is still in the running. Walnut is pretty dark though, but having like those earthy colors and neutrals, warm grays, warm beige, warm whites, those can be very comforting. But if you do want to bring in accents, like where this is just from my own like location, what I work with, people tend to lean away towards lots of dark colors. So adding deeper accents like walnut pieces or dark brown pieces can really ground a space as well. And that can also not just be done through furniture. I mean, a lot of people have wood floors. So you already have that grounding, cozy color there of dark brown. And then you can also bring in, of course, like art pieces, pillows, different accents and home decor items to make it feel more cozy.
Yeah, so as Angie was saying, you can have a space that is, blue or green or pink or peach, and it can still feel cozy. It doesn't matter what color it is. And it's really on how you add elements. And when you layer elements in design and decor, and when you're designing and you're layering thoughtfully different elements and different color tones, that is what creates a cozy feel because you are curating a space that is thoughtful and that means a lot to you. And so, you know, as I was mentioning, a rug is a really easy way to do it. Art is another way to bring in cozy and colors as well. And Angie had mentioned, little details that bring in deeper tones because, having that contrast is really part of it as well. Because you really want the eye to be able to move around a space and land in places that makes it, in the right height and in the right spot so that it instantly just grounds you. Even, you walk through like, and it stops your eye from like continually, you stop at a wall, your eye stops at a wall or you stops at the floor. And it if hung at the right level, etcetera, eye level, not too high, not too low, or placed in the right size, these elements that you bring in different colors, really personal colors, that's what makes you feel cozy because it stops your energy from just kind of wandering. It feels settled, right? You just feel comfortable. But some of the colors, if we're just talking straight up feng shui, some colors that lean more toward being more grounding and cozy. I'll read a couple from our book. One would be again, and I wouldn't add it in too much. And I think we actually said that somewhere in this, but umber is a dark and warm brown this is from our book, whose natural pigment is raw umber. Like the rich earth it comes from, the chi of this hue is grounding and stabilizing or can ground and stabilize. And there is something about brown you can bring in through wood, right? That color of umber, that kind of rich wood. One of my favorite ways to bring in this kind of warm wood is through antiques or through vintage pieces that, yes, you've space cleared, through vintage pieces that have that patina and that have that age. And it is really kind of a really cool way to bring in that warmth. And then another color would be yellow ochre. So yellow ochre is, again, this is from our book, is a deep ferrous yellow. Yellow ochre is also a natural mineral pigment found in artwork as far back as prehistoric times. Iron-rich soil is filtered and dried to produce the color. In feng shui, it represents grounded earth energy. Similarly, you can intentionally use this color in your home to provide support and stability. And it's interesting, both of the colors I mentioned are from natural pigments. And I think this is something that has kind of come up through the conversation is if you want to bring in cozy, choose natural elements, choose elements that speak to where they came from, right? And that it gives you that. When you take away the further away you get from nature or from, the world that we want to connect with, the more otherworldly it becomes, the less cozy it is, I think, as a general rule. And then one last thing I wanted to talk about, a neutral color. So we talked a bit about, so let's say you don't want big color, you can definitely get cozy with using a creamy white or a neutral. Cream, this is again from our book, cream includes warm or chalky whites with some tiny yellow or pink undertones. Minerals such as chalk and limestone are the base of many off-white pigments. These warmer whites have cooling chi with a touch of nurturing earthiness. From a feng shui perspective, creamy neutrals also enable spaciousness, precision, and productivity. So that's just a little bit about color. Again, it's really personal.
So, what are some common mistakes that actually make a space feel less cozy from a feng shui perspective? So, from a feng shui perspective, when a space has too much yang energy or qi, very active energy, it will feel less cozy and less relaxing because yang energy is very active. So, some examples of yang elements would be very brightly lit rooms, especially like if it's like cool lighting because it's not warm. So, I think of my dad. I don't know why he just, but I think because it helps his eyes probably. But he has like the like the you like a like the coldest UFO, brightest like light bulb from Costco. Like next to him, and I'm like, "Oh my god, this thing is blinding me." So it's like a UFO landed, in your living room. So that kind of like blue light, or if you think about like a hospital light, like Laura said, like, no one's doing surgery in the room. So if you think about like a hospital light, which is very good light for tasks and for making you super alert, but it's not a cozy kind of relaxing environment to have like a really very brightly lit, especially the type of light, like a cool white light. Very high ceilings tend to feel less cozy because they can be very cavernous. That doesn't mean you can't have high ceilings in your home. We're just saying that might not be the cozy space in your house. Sharp corners, hard surfaces. Think about like you could think about like walking down a courthouse like hallway. Click, clack, click, clack. You're like your shoes are clicking clack and it's very like echoey. So that's the opposite of cozy. A space can become more inviting when you have those softer yin design details dominant in the space. And we went over that in the beginning of the call. So to end, we wanted to share something. Our
Yeah.
Yeah, you
You
start.
want me to go? Okay. So I'm going to ask Angie and I'm going to answer this as well. Our number one tip, each of us, to create an instantly cozy space. So for me, I think I did talk about it. For me, number one is texture. And texture can mean many different things. It can mean fabrics, it can mean visual texture, it can mean things you can't even touch, but it feels like it's texture. So for when I talk about texture, I mean visual texture in many ways. So there's layers. I love layers in a space. And so I would say the best way to do it is a rug. Rugs, area rugs. And there are some beautiful ones you can get that are very reasonably priced now. Technology is insane on what you can get on rugs. You can The thing about rugs is you can blow the bank on rugs. You can get the most fabulous silk rug that is gorgeous and, costs you a ton of money and will feel fantastic when you walk on it and it's just the best thing ever. Or you can I don't know, go to IKEA and find a really lovely practical rug that if you get it in the correct size for your space where it feels like it's almost embracing and pulling together the area that you want to focus on. So it could be pulling together the bed area, it could be pulling together the seating area. It kind of embraces it and grounds that whole area. It can just completely shift the energy of a space and make it instantly cozy.
That's a great number one tip. I don't think we need a second one.
Really?
Yeah,
Okay. All right.
that was a great 1 minute
Tip
number
for
one tip
everyone.
to create
Yeah.
a cozy space. Yeah,
All
thank
right.
you.
Okay.
So, thank you guys for listening to this episode of the Holistic Spaces podcast. You can tune in every Monday for a new podcast episode. If you like our podcast in this episode, you can share this podcast with others. You can subscribe, leave a review. You can support us by checking out our certification and mini courses at mindfuldesignschool.com. And if you'd like to check us out, visit us at mindfuldesignschool.com. Join our mailing list, mindfuldesignschool.com/join. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you next week.